The desert near the Dead Sea does not go silent at night. It breathes. Wind moves through the cliffs like something dragging its fingers over stone. Salt hangs in the air. Dust sticks to the skin. A narrow cave opens in the darkness, and inside it, hidden in broken jars and forgotten shadows, lie fragments of a story most people were never taught. Not gold, not a royal crown, not the weapon of a buried king. Words, ancient words, cracked by time, written on fragile skin, carrying a story that sits close to the Bible, but outside the version most Americans grew up hearing. A story about beings who watched humanity from above, crossed a line they were never supposed to cross, and taught mankind knowledge it was never meant to receive. For most people, angels are comforting. White wings, light, protection, a hand reaching down from heaven. But the Watchers of Enoch are not comforting. They do not enter the story as saviors. They enter it as a breach, as guardians who abandoned their post, as heavenly beings who looked down at the human world, desired what they saw, and brought with them a kind of knowledge that did not heal the earth. It poisoned it, and that is where the familiar story begins to crack. Because the Book of Enoch does not simply ask whether angels fell, it asks something far more disturbing. What if humanity was changed forever because it learned too much, too soon? Officially, the Book of Enoch is not part of most biblical canons. Most churches in America do not treat it the same way they treat Genesis, Exodus, Matthew, or Revelation. Scholars study it as ancient Jewish apocalyptic literature, a powerful window into the religious imagination of the world before and around early Christianity. That explanation is reasonable. Almost too reasonable, because the strange thing is this. The Book of Enoch did not disappear. Its images survived across centuries. Its language echoed through religious thought. Its fragments appeared among ancient manuscripts near the Dead Sea, and at the center of it stands one of the darkest ideas in ancient religious history. That evil did not only rise from human weakness. Something taught it to us. The story begins with the Watchers. They are heavenly beings, figures connected to the idea of divine observation. They are supposed to watch, to guard, to remain above the boundary between heaven and earth. But in the Enochic tradition, they come down, not as messengers with comfort, not as warriors sent to rescue mankind. They descend because they desire human women. They make a pact. They swear an oath together. They know they are crossing a forbidden line, and they do it anyway. From that union come the Nephilim, the giants of the ancient world. For many modern viewers, that is the part that grabs attention first. Giants before the flood. Beings born from heaven and earth. The strange shadow behind one of the most debated passages in Genesis. But the giants are not the deepest horror in the story. They are the symptom. The real wound is the knowledge. According to the tradition, the Watchers teach humanity things that sound useful at first. Metalworking, weapons, ornaments, cosmetics, the movements of the heavens, the signs of the stars, the secrets of plants, the hidden forces of the world. On the surface, that sounds like civilization. But in the Book of Enoch, it becomes evidence in a cosmic trial. Because knowledge arrives without wisdom. Power arrives without restraint. Skill arrives before the human soul has learned what to do with it. And suddenly, the world does not become more enlightened. It becomes more violent. That is what makes this story feel disturbingly modern. America understands stories about dangerous knowledge. We live in a world where every breakthrough promises salvation before anyone knows the cost. Fire, steel, gunpowder, atomic energy, artificial intelligence, surveillance, genetic editing. Every age believes it is ready for the next door until the door opens and something walks through with us. The Watchers of Enoch are frightening because they are ancient, but their warning is not ancient at all. It is current. Azazel becomes one of the most unsettling figures in this tradition. He is not just a name from an old text. He is presented as a teacher of forbidden skills. He shows humanity how to make weapons, how to work metal, how to decorate the body, how to turn raw material into power and desire. And there is a strange detail here that should not be ignored. Weapons and beauty stand side by side. The blade and the ornament come from the same forbidden classroom. Violence and vanity are not treated as separate problems. They are linked. Both change how human beings see each other. Both can turn the body into an object. Both can create hunger for control. That is not a cheap monster story. That is a diagnosis. A modern scholar can explain it as ancient criticism of civilization. Early people saw that technology could build cities, but also make war more efficient. They saw that beauty could become status. That metal could become a tool or a sword. That knowledge could separate the powerful from the powerless. So the ancient author gave the problem a supernatural shape. The Watchers did it. But if it is only a myth, why does it feel so precise? Why does the text read less like a vague legend and more like an indictment? One Watcher teaches one kind of knowledge. Another teaches another. The story names crimes. It describes consequences. It builds a case. It does not simply say the world became corrupt. It says corruption had teachers. That is where the story stops being simple. Because the Book of Enoch is not just trying to explain where evil came from. It is trying to explain organized evil, skilled evil, beautiful evil, technological evil, evil that knows how to build, calculate, decorate, persuade, and kill. That is a different kind of darkness. In Genesis, the strange passage about the sons of God and the daughters of men is brief, almost too brief. It appears like a torn page from a much larger file. There are divine beings, human women, mighty figures. Then the earth fills with violence. Then comes the flood. It is quick, compressed, unsettling. The Book of Enoch opens that sealed room. It takes the shadow in Genesis and expands it into a full cosmic drama. The Watchers descend. The forbidden union happens. The giants arise. Human violence grows unbearable. The earth cries out. Heaven responds. The flood, in this tradition, does not look like a random disaster. It looks like a cosmic emergency. A contaminated world has to be stopped. That is why the Watchers matter more than the giants. The Nephilim may be the shocking image, but the Watchers are the deeper question. They are the ones who break the boundary. They are the ones who bring knowledge down. They are the ones who turn the human story into something larger and darker than human sin alone. And that raises a question that refuses to stay in the ancient world. Who has the right to give humanity power? Not just information. Power. The power to kill at a distance. The power to reshape the body. The power to read the sky as a machine. The power to turn nature into a weapon. The power to make the invisible visible and the sacred usable. In the Book of Enoch, forbidden knowledge is not neutral. It has weight. It has moral gravity. It can bend a world out of shape. Modern culture often says knowledge itself is always good, and only the use of knowledge can become evil. But Enoch is not so comfortable. Enoch treats some knowledge like fire in a dry forest. It can illuminate. It can warm. It can also erase everything. Here is where the American fascination with the Book of Enoch becomes easy to understand. This is not just an ancient religious text. It touches several nerves at once. Hidden scripture, forbidden angels, giants before the flood, lost history, ancient knowledge, a missing chapter behind the Bible, a story that feels like it was pushed to the edge of the official narrative. That does not mean there is a conspiracy behind every manuscript. That would be too easy. The stronger version is more uncomfortable. The Book of Enoch may disturb people not because someone hid it perfectly, but because it sits in a gray zone. Close enough to biblical tradition to feel familiar, strange enough to feel dangerous, old enough to feel important. Outside most cannons, enough to feel forbidden. It is not fully inside the house. It is not fully outside the gate. It stands at the threshold, and threshold stories are the ones people cannot stop opening. Enoch himself becomes the key figure in this threshold. He is not a king. He is not a conqueror. He does not build an empire. He does not win a battlefield. He witnesses. He moves between worlds. He sees what ordinary people do not see. He becomes a messenger between heaven and the fallen watchers. He carries the sentence. He stands in a story where the universe itself seems to become a courtroom. The earth is the crime scene. The watchers are the accused. Humanity is both victim and participant, and heaven is not silent. That is one of the most chilling reversals in the whole tradition. The beings called watchers were supposed to guard the boundary, but they became the breach. The guard opened the gate. The protector became the threat. That image is powerful because it works far beyond religion. Every society fears the same thing. The institution meant to protect becomes the danger. The expert meant to guide becomes the corrupt teacher. The archive meant to preserve truth becomes a locked room. The technology meant to liberate becomes a cage. The watchers are an ancient form of that fear. They are not frightening only because they fell. They are frightening because they had authority before they fell. That is why this story still works. It is not about a monster outside the walls. It is about the one standing at the gate with the keys. At this point, pause with the story for a moment. If you found a fragment in a desert cave and it described a world where humanity was taught dangerous knowledge by beings from above, would you dismiss it as myth and close the file? Or would you ask why this warning survived long enough to reach us? Put that choice in the comments. Would you read the Watchers as symbolic myth, forgotten spiritual history, or a warning about what knowledge does to human beings? Because the answer says more about the modern world than it says about the ancient one. The deeper the story goes, the less it behaves like simple fantasy. It begins to look like a map of collapse. First, there is observation, then desire, then violation, then knowledge, then power, then violence, then judgment. That pattern is terrifying, because it does not belong only to the ancient world. Civilizations repeat it again and again. A discovery is made. A promise follows. A weapon appears. A justification is written. The weak pay the price. Later, the survivors call it progress and try not to look too closely at the bodies underneath it. The Book of Enoch understood something very old about human beings. We rarely refuse power because we are afraid of becoming evil. We usually accept power and promise ourselves we will remain good. That is the trap. The Watchers do not have to force humanity to receive forbidden knowledge. They teach it. Humanity uses it. And once the knowledge enters the world, it cannot be returned to heaven. That is one of the most haunting ideas in the entire story. Some doors only open one way. When metal becomes a sword, the world after the sword is not the same as the world before it. When the stars become omens, the night sky is no longer only wonder. When beauty becomes a weapon of status and desire, the human face becomes a battlefield. When hidden knowledge becomes public power, innocence is not recovered by regret. The Book of Enoch is filled with supernatural imagery, but its terror is deeply human. It says that corruption is not always ignorance. Sometimes corruption is education without conscience. And if that is true, then the Watchers did not merely give humanity tools. They gave humanity acceleration. They pushed the world forward before the soul could catch up. This is why the flood becomes so important. In many popular retellings, the flood is imagined as punishment. Humanity became wicked, so judgment came. But in the Enochic world, the wickedness is tied to a larger contamination. The earth is overwhelmed by a violence that is unnatural in scale. The giants devour. Blood fills the ground. The cry rises upward. The story is not just moral failure, it is world failure. A system has broken. And once the system breaks, even heaven responds with severity. For an American documentary audience, this is where the tension becomes strongest. The question is not whether every image in Enoch should be read literally. The question is why ancient people told the story this way. Why did they imagine evil as something taught? Why did they imagine civilization as something that could be infected at its foundation? Why did they connect heavenly rebellion, forbidden knowledge, giants, violence, and the flood into one chain? Maybe because they were trying to explain trauma. Maybe because they saw empires rise and crush the weak. Maybe because they watched technology make violence easier. Maybe because they believed spiritual rebellion stood behind human brutality. Or maybe because they understood that the most dangerous thing in the world is not ignorance. It is intelligence without restraint. That idea still haunts us. It haunts laboratories, war rooms, boardrooms, archives, secret programs, restricted sites. Every place where knowledge is developed before the public understands what it will cost. This is why the Book of Enoch keeps returning in modern culture. It gives ancient language to a modern anxiety. It tells us there may be a point where progress becomes trespass. A point where discovery becomes violation. A point where the teacher becomes more dangerous than the enemy. The strangest part is that Enoch does not present the Watchers as chaotic monsters. They are organized. They make a pact. They choose. They know. Their fall is not an accident. It is a decision made with awareness. That makes the story darker. A creature that destroys without understanding is frightening. A creature that understands and continues is worse. The Watchers know they are crossing a line. That is why the oath matters. It gives the dissent a sense of conspiracy, not in the modern cheap sense, but in the older, heavier sense. A group bound together by a shared violation. A secret agreement before a catastrophic act. And once they descend, their knowledge spreads through human life, not as lightning from the sky, as culture. That may be the most unsettling idea of all. The forbidden does not remain exotic. It becomes normal. It becomes fashion, warfare, calculation, status, ritual, and skill. It becomes civilization itself, or at least the corrupted version of civilization the text wants us to fear. So the real horror is not that the Watchers came down. The real horror is that after they came down, the world may have started to look normal again. People still married, worked, traded, built, decorated themselves, looked at the sky, sharpened blades, taught their children. But beneath ordinary life, something had changed. A line had been crossed, and humanity had adapted to the damage. That is what makes ancient warnings powerful. They do not always describe the end of the world as fire in the sky. Sometimes they describe the end of innocence while the streets remain full. There is also a human tragedy hidden inside the myth. The women in the story are often reduced to symbols. The giants become spectacle. The Watchers become dark fascination. But beneath the cosmic language is a world of bodies, families, fear, hunger, and violence. If the story reflects ancient anxiety, it is anxiety about the vulnerable being caught in the decisions of the powerful. The ones above choose. The ones below suffer. That pattern is older than empire, and it has never disappeared. This is why Enoch still feels dangerous. It does not simply blame humans, and it does not fully excuse them. It shows a world where corruption comes through both temptation and participation. The Watchers bring the knowledge, but humanity uses it. The boundary is broken from above, but the consequences spread below. No one leaves the story clean. That is a much darker vision than a simple tale of evil angels. It is a story about shared collapse, and maybe that is why it never truly died. The Book of Enoch survived in complicated ways, through traditions, translations, preserved communities, scholarly recovery, and renewed public fascination. It did not remain central for most Western churches, but it never vanished from the larger religious imagination. It became the kind of text people return to when the official map feels too clean. And official maps often do feel too clean. They tell us where the borders are: canon and non-canon, myth and history, accepted and rejected, sacred and strange. But real history is often messier than the map. Texts move. Communities preserve different memories. Ideas echo even after institutions draw lines. A story can be outside the main room and still influence the shape of the house. That is the place Enoch occupies for many modern readers. Not proof of every theory. Not a secret Bible that automatically overturns everything. But a door into the fears, questions, and spiritual imagination of the ancient world. And behind that door stands the watchers. Still watching. Still accused. Still asking what humanity did with the knowledge it received. Near the end of the story, the most disturbing thought is not about ancient giants. It is about us, because the Watchers force a question that no modern society can answer comfortably. Are we better than the world Enoch feared? We have more knowledge, more tools, more speed, more reach. We can look deeper into space, deeper into the atom, deeper into the human mind. We can preserve life, end life, imitate intelligence, alter nature, and store entire civilizations inside machines. But have we become wiser? Or have we simply become more powerful? That is why this ancient text still feels like a warning written for a future it never saw. It describes a world where knowledge outran morality, where beings with authority broke trust, where forbidden instruction created violence, where the earth itself cried out under the weight of what had been unleashed. Strip away the ancient names and the pattern remains. A boundary is crossed. A gift is given. A weapon is born. A world changes. And later, everyone argues about who is responsible. That may be the real reason the Watchers haunt the modern imagination. They give a face to the fear that human progress may not be a straight climb upward. It may be a staircase built over sealed rooms, and beneath each step, there may be something we chose not to remember. The Book of Enoch does not need to be treated as a literal newspaper from the ancient heavens to matter. It matters because it preserved one of humanity's oldest suspicions. That some knowledge comes with a curse. That some teachers should not be trusted. That some doors, once opened, do not close. And that the fall of a civilization may begin not with darkness, but with illumination. A torch in the wrong hand. A secret spoken too early. A blade shaped from the earth. A star read as a command. A watcher who stops watching and starts interfering. Now imagine the desert again. The caves near the Dead Sea. The salt in the air. The fragments resting in controlled rooms, studied under careful light. The ink is faded. The skin is damaged. The ancient world is gone. But the question remains alive. Who is more dangerous? The beings who brought forbidden knowledge down to humanity? Or humanity, once it realized what that knowledge could do? If this story makes you feel that ancient texts are not always about the past, stay with this channel. Because the next door opens into an even darker question. If the Watchers taught humanity forbidden knowledge, then what were the Nephilim really supposed to be? Giants of myth, memories of violence before the flood, or the shadow of a world that ancient writers believed had to be erased before history could begin again?